Hi, it's Sherry. Welcome back to my channel, Canterbury Cottage. You know those rooms that just invite you to come in, sit down, get comfortable, and stay a while? Well, as it turns out, all of those rooms have several things in common. So today I want to talk about 10 of those elements that make a room warm and welcoming. And I want to do one DIY project to incorporate each of those elements. So that's 10 DIY projects in today's video. So you know what I'm going to say next. We better get started. If you want to create a warm, welcoming space, the easiest way to do it is to incorporate warm colors. Every possible color can be either cool or warm based on its undertones. For example, creamy whites with yellow undertones are warmer than bright whites with blue undertones. Have you ever noticed that the most welcoming homes often have lots of things hanging on the walls? On the other hand, empty walls can create an almost sterile environment. So for our first project, let's make a large mirror out of a thrifted small mirror and empty frame. I painted the mirror and the frame with 2 coats of ivory chalk paint, and then I lightly distressed both pieces using 220 grit sandpaper. I applied a coat of clear wax to both pieces using a wax brush, and then I wiped off the excess with a rag. Using the cardboard from the large frame as a template, I cut out a piece of fabric. I applied some spray adhesive to the cardboard and then smoothed the fabric over the top. I sprayed some adhesive on the back side of the cardboard and then folded the extra fabric over. I drew diagonal lines from corner to corner to mark the center of the cardboard. Because my mirror was going to be attached to this fabric-covered cardboard, I wanted to make sure it was secure, and so I stapled it back into the frame. Once I had the mirror lined up in the center of the frame, I used some hot glue to attach it to the fabric. Then I flipped it over and stapled it from the back, making sure that the staples went into the frame of the mirror and stayed clear of the mirror itself. To clean up the back, I went over the edges of the fabric with a couple rows of paper tape. Although this mirror would look great hanging on the wall, I wanted to show you a couple other possibilities. It also looks nice propped up on another piece of furniture and just leaning against a wall or even another mirror. A welcoming home is also one with lots of plants and flowers. So let's make something using dried flowers. I removed everything from this Goodwill frame, leaving just the wood. I printed out my little garden in French on a piece of antique-looking paper that I ordered from Amazon. I cut the paper the size of the cardboard back of the frame and then used glue stick to adhere it. I drilled a hole about 1.5 inches down from the top on each side. Then I thread a piece of black florist wire through both holes, creating a little clothesline, if you will. To create a deeper box, I decided to use the back of the frame as the front of my frame, and so I needed to fill a couple little nail holes. I ordered these dried flowers off of AliExpress, but I found some on Amazon that I actually like better. I made 3 separate little bundles of flowers and then tied each bundle together using some cheap twine. I used hot glue to reattach the cardboard back of the frame. I removed the wire from one side of the frame and then thread it through the twine holding each of the 3 flower bundles. I think these little dried flowers are so sweet, and this box would look cute hanging on a wall or sitting on a shelf. I think books are one of the ways to make a room feel extra homey. So let's make a book out of an old box. This one happens to be a jewelry box that I purchased for a couple dollars at Goodwill. First, I removed all of the hardware, and then I painted it with 2 coats of ivory chalk paint. I wanted my book to be the Canterbury Tales, the book that was the inspiration for the name of this channel. So I found an image of a book cover that I liked, and then I printed it out in the size of the top of my jewelry box. I took pictures of the sides of an old book that I had, and then printed these images out to fit the sides of the jewelry box. I decoupaged the sides onto the box first and let the Mod Podge dry. When the Mod Podge was thoroughly dry, I went along all of the edges with a utility knife to cut off the extra paper. I also cut along the bottom edge of the lid on all 3 sides so the box would actually open again. Then I decoupaged my book cover to the top of the box, putting Mod Podge on both the jewelry box and on the piece of paper. I had to splice several images together to create a book spine image that was wide enough to cover the back of my box. When the Mod Podge was thoroughly dry and all the edges trimmed, I went over the entire box with another coat of Mod Podge. I know these book storage boxes are easy to find in stores, but I like mine better. It's more realistic looking and it's personalized to look like my all-time favorite book. Rooms where everything is new are not nearly as welcoming as those rooms that have some old things mixed in. A couple viewers asked about the vintage cheese box from my last video, so I thought I would include it today. I think the cheese box is cute just the way it is, so I didn't want to change it much. I took 4 little wood knobs and painted them green to match the green printed on the side of the box. I distressed them a bit and then attached them using Starbond super glue and spray accelerator. If you don't have Starbond glue, E6000 or wood glue would work just as well. They just take longer to dry. You could use this to hold so many small things. I like it in the kitchen to hold salt and pepper shakers and measuring cups. I also think it would be cute in a bathroom holding cotton balls and cotton swabs. I like straight lines and angles in design, but every room needs something round to help soften all of those straight lines. So let's make a round clock, a fake round clock. Remove the backing and frame from a Dollar Tree mirror. Measure the mirror. This one was just under 8 inches in diameter. Print out an image of a vintage clock face. If you like this one, I have it linked below in my description box. Put a thin coat of Mod Podge on the front of the mirror and on the back of the clock image. If you do this, you'll be able to jiggle the image around a bit and get it perfectly lined up without tearing the paper. You can leave it like this, or you can repurpose some old clock hands and glue them on the face of the clock. I do have a coupon code in the description box if you're interested in ordering the Starbond glue, but just about any glue would work on these clock hands. I painted the edge of the mirror with some dark brown chalk paint. I also painted this little picture frame stand from Dollar Tree with the same brown paint. Use the Starbond glue or E6000 to attach the picture frame to the back of the mirror. I went ahead and painted the cardboard backing with the brown paint. I also distressed the stand on the picture frame just a bit with sandpaper. You don't have to attach the stand. The clock could lean against a wall or other things. The stand just gives you more display options. There is nothing so welcoming in a room as the glow of candlelight or the warm glow of lamplight. So let's make a lamp, but not just any lamp. Let's make a book lamp. After seeing me upcycle a glass lamp like this in a recent video, a friend thought I might like to have another one. After sealing it in a garbage sack, I broke off all of the glass and threw it away. I cleaned it really well and gave it 2 coats of matte black spray paint. Be sure to tape off the socket and the cord before you start painting. Pull the socket cover out of its base. You may need to use a screwdriver to loosen it up a bit. You will see 2 screws holding down wires. Loosen them up a bit and pull out the wires. You can now slide off any other parts that are on the metal rod. Using a drill bit just slightly larger than the metal rod of the lamp, drill a hole in the center of several books. Because it stuck out a bit, I sanded down the edges of the hole on each side. The number of books you'll need will depend on the length of that metal rod. I added 1 book at a time until I reached the height that I needed. I played around with the sizes and the colors of the books to create a stack of books that I found visually pleasing. For my last book, I printed out this image of Canterbury Cathedral and decoupaged it to the cover of an old thesaurus. This is the only book cover that you can fully see on the lamp. Return any lamp parts that you slid off the metal rod earlier. The last piece should be the harp holder, and then you tighten the nut to hold all of these pieces in place. Pull the wires through the socket base and then screw the base to the metal rod. Wrap the wires around the socket screws and then tighten them. Replace the socket cover. Push the socket back into the base while simultaneously gently pulling on the cord from the base of the lamp. Reattach the harp if your lampshade requires one. I found this shade for only $2.99 at Goodwill. It was the perfect size for this lamp. I have wanted to make a lamp like this for the longest time, and I don't know what I was waiting for. It was so much easier than I thought it would be, and I think it makes this sitting area so welcoming. Aged metals such as brass and silver contribute to a feeling of comfort. You can age newer metals by covering them in toilet bowl cleaner and letting them sit overnight. I also painted the plastic handle with chalk paint to give this sifter a more aged appearance. I wanted to add a battery-operated candle and some flowers to the inside of the sifter. I cut some hard styrofoam to fit snugly inside the sifter and attached it with a little hot glue. My candlestick was not flat on the bottom, and so I knew it would not adhere well to the styrofoam. So instead, I glued a scrap metal round that I had to the styrofoam. A jar lid would have worked too. And then I glued the candlestick to the metal round. I added some more styrofoam around the candle, and then I began adding my fake flowers. Be sure to cut the stems apart if you are working with a floral bunch. Also, cut the stems short to the length that you need, and don't be afraid to cut off leaves if you think there are too many. I added a few stems of ivy because I like the look of leaves drooping over the edge of a container. As a final step, I added Spanish moss to cover the styrofoam. I think my sifter looks vintage, and it's the perfect size to display on my stove or kitchen counter. The glow of candlelight is very welcoming and doubles as a nightlight for my kitchen. You could also use the candlesticks that plug in so you don't have to change out the batteries. A room with lots of wood is always warm and welcoming, and it's so easy to add wood elements. Let's make some little plant stands out of wood scraps. Find the center of each square or rectangular wood scrap. Measure the diameter of the terracotta pots that you want to use, and pick a hole saw that is slightly smaller than the diameter. Using your drill and a hole saw bit, drill a hole or holes in your scrap wood. I glued on some wood spools for feet. Wood cabinet knobs and cut-up spindles also make good feet. I decided to paint my terracotta pots green to match the chippy paint of the scrap wood. I also painted the raw edges of the wood with the green chalk paint and then distressed it a bit. For this plant stand, I just cut 2 pieces of scrap wood to the width of my top piece and then glued them together. Once again, I painted the sides green to match the chippy paint of the top piece. I also went over the side pieces with a bit of antiquing wax to make the piece look a bit more cohesive in color. These wood rounds were created when I drilled holes in the scrap wood. I thought they looked like little wagon wheels, so I decided to glue them onto another piece of scrap wood to create a little fake wagon. I used some antiquing wax along the raw edges of the wood. I screwed an eye hook into one end and then tied on a piece of twine. I think these little wood elements are a cute way to display small plants, but you could use them for other things too. For example, a larger pot would make a cute cup for holding pencils. A variety of textiles such as rugs, curtains, throws, and pillows creates a very inviting environment. So let's add a textile to this $2 Goodwill end table. I unscrewed the legs, took them outside, and using my miter saw, I cut them down to footstool height. I cut a piece of foam, also purchased at Goodwill, to the size of the top of the table. Just so you know, this is not a vintage quilt. This is a 10-year-old quilted bedspread. When cutting the bedspread, I left 3 extra inches on each side. I sprayed the tabletop with spray adhesive and then adhered the piece of foam. It sticks immediately, so make sure you have it lined up the way you want it. Wrap your fabric around your foam. Fold the extra fabric over the edge and staple. Use 1 staple on each of the 4 sides and then check to make sure that you have your pattern lined up the way you want it. Then turn it back over and continue to staple. Pull the fabric tight when going around corners. Create a little pleat and then staple it. Then create another little pleat and staple it, and continue in this fashion until you get around the corner. Because the legs were so skinny, I thought it needed some fringe, which I just hot glued along the edge. It's very granny, but is it granny chic? I'm trying to embrace stained wood, but a part of me thinks that I should have painted these legs with ivory chalk paint. What do you think? Renowned designer Nancy Lancaster once said that every room should have something ugly in it. I don't know about ugly, but I do think every room should have something whimsical in it. I paid $4.99 for this gumball machine at Goodwill. To begin, remove the large screw at the top of the gumball machine. Remove the lid, the glass globe, and all the inner plastic pieces. At this point, the base will also slide off. The nuts on the top of the metal rod should have unscrewed, but mine were jammed, and so I had to cut one of the pieces of plastic in order to get everything off. I filled the base with hard styrofoam and a variety of succulents purchased at Walmart and Dollar Tree. I then covered the styrofoam with some reindeer moss. To reassemble, I first put the base back in with its skinny metal rod sticking up through the styrofoam. At this point, I decided to hot glue the transparent portion of a Dollar Tree butterfly sticker to the metal rod. I replaced the glass globe and the lid with its plastic insert, and then I tightened the top screw. To add some extra whimsy, I hot glued some succulents to appear as if they were growing out of both the coin slot and the gumball dispenser area. I also hot glued in some reindeer moss to help hold everything in place. I think the gumball terrarium is a fun element in my library, which otherwise looks very serious. The higher the Kelvin rating of a light bulb, the cooler the light will be. Consider using warm light bulbs with low Kelvin ratings. As a reference point, candlelight and firelight are typically under 2000 Kelvin. Did you like today's projects? Well, if you did, I'd love to know in the comments which one was your favorite. My favorite was this upcycled jewelry box. I just think it looks so much like a real book. And I ripped out the dividers, so now it is the perfect size to hold the TV remotes. If you're interested, I left links for most of the supplies that I used in today's video. And I also left links to the images that I used in the decoupage projects. Well, that's all for today. See you next Tuesday. Bye-bye for now.